MindEspresso starts off in the Middle East, in the middle of the Iraq War, where Joint Special Operations Command, JSOC, run by General Stanley McChrystal, was suffering. Their Delta forces, their SEAL teams, their Nighthawks were losing to 50-year-old Iraqis who had flip phones and guns that jammed. How are the best trained fighters in the world and best equipped fighters in the world losing? And it wasn't that they lost every engagement, right? They would win the battles they were in, but what they were finding is that their information was wrong and therefore their approach was wrong. And when they looked at it, he and Chris Fussell, his chief of staff, what they found is that they had siloed information and it took too long for information to make it from the front lines all the way to Central Command, decisions to be made and decisions to be rolled out. So they moved to something called radical transparency. Radical transparency was opening up the lines every day and with complete candor, sharing what worked and what didn't work. No more hiding to try to look better because there was tribal factions, Delta is better than SEALs, etc. No more hiding, complete candor, complete transparency. That then allowed them to move with speed. Ray Dalio, who's the head of Bridgewater Associates, big hedge fund, also believes in radical transparency. But let's take this and apply it now to your personal life as well. And we're going to move to a book by Kim Scott called Radical Candor, where she argues the only caring place where you really care about the other person is at the nexus of two things: when you care about them deeply and you're willing to challenge them directly. If not, we fall into these other categories which have all sorts of poor repercussions. My favorite is ruinous empathy. That's where you care about the other person, but you don't want to hurt their feelings. Or you care about the other person, but you're worried about the outcome this could have if I tell that other person in this way. So you hedge a little bit and they don't get the information and therefore they can't get better or they make the wrong decision. The opposite side of that is something she calls obnoxious aggression. This is when you're just bluntly telling everybody everything, but you don't care about the other person. And that's driven by defensiveness. And what you're trying to do is take before they take from you, right? So ruinous empathy, obnoxious aggression, neither one of those work. Then the worst one is manipulative insincerity. This is when you don't care and you aren't direct. So no one has any information and you don't care. And so you're really just screwing the other person over. You could be gaslighting the other person, if you know what that term is. And the best way to do this was, they said, what would you do if your fly was down, if someone's fly was down? Well, if you were a manipulatively insincere person, you would just tell the person they looked great, right? If you were obnoxious aggression, you would say, hey, dope, your fly is down. If you were ruinous empathy, you would hint to the other person, hey, how you doing? But you probably wouldn't tell them directly and they'd probably walk around with their fly down. Where the person who had radical candor, right, which is caring plus challenging directly, would walk up and say, hey, just want to let you know your fly is down so you can make any adjustments, right? So that's the difference between radical candor, ruinous empathy, obnoxious aggression, and manipulative insincerity. And her whole point is that if you're not being candid and you don't care, your relationships are going to suffer. Your ability to get anything done is going to suffer in your life. So this whole idea of radical transparency, radical candor matters when you're managing teams, but it also matters a great deal in your personal relationships. And if you want to think if you're at the right level to have a radically candid conversation with someone, we use a model called the DEEP model in working with some executives. And it goes disarm, engage, align, prove. If you're at the D, that means first you have to disarm the other person. You have to show them that you're not enemies, right? That's the base level. You probably can't have that candid conversation with that person. And if you disarm them and you could show, hey, I'm not your enemy, then you need to engage them and find out what do they like, what do they think, what are they worried about? And only then can you align with that person. That's your A, right? And when you align with that person, now you can start having that candid conversation with them. And after you prove that those candid conversations are mutually beneficial, now you can have this open, transparent relationship. So 2 things to leave you with. Number 1, lack of transparency hurts teams and it hurts your personal life. Number 2, we have to find a way to get to this area where we care enough to tell people the truth in a way that they can do something with it. We're not trying to hurt their feelings. What we're trying to do is make them better and make us better. And that is this week's MindEspresso.